here with Crafty Ladybug. Today's lesson is going to be on the flower inside the flower pot. This is a 3D version and it does stand on its own with a little bit of persuasion. I can't get it to do it right here on camera with the angle that I have, but it is a 3D standing item that looks gorgeous next to our arch. Would look stunning next to the arch, placed up in a garden scene. This is my newest collection to Loomville. I decided I was going to sort of build my own little town and I'm calling it Loomville. A major difference between my prototype and the item that I'm demoing today is the length of the petals. If you like this length of petals, the wispier look and length, when we get to the flower petal portion, you're going to want to add an extra little bit of length, and I will tell you how to do that. But your demo today, if you're following along exactly, is going to look tighter, more like this daisy, Shasta daisy flower that I have here. Before you begin, you want to do the medium flower pot bucket pail video. That is what I'm using to do the base, and we're going to be weaving that into our piece as we start to loom up. So be sure that you complete the medium bucket, pail, or flower pot. That video is on my website. And I wanted to let you know that as you're doing that video, be sure when you get to the end portion of that video and you start to loop the links around, you're wanting to grab the band that's on the bottom. If you don't grab the band that's exactly on the bottom, there is a chance that your pot could fall apart. So I just want to let you know that in advance. So go do our bucket if you haven't already done so, and then come back and we will begin with our lesson on the Shasta daisy flower. For today's purposes, I am using purple for my petals, and we're going to need around 85. My center color is still going to be yellow, and we need around 20. And then my stem color is going to be green, and we're going to need around 40 to complete the stem color. So get your supplies ready. Make sure you've got your bucket done, and let's begin with our lesson today. Our loom's going to be set in a offset configuration with the arrows pointing towards our body. Let's begin with our petal area. For the petal area, you're going to be placing a single band from left 1 to left 2. Another single band from left 1 to center 2. 3 bands are going to go from left 2 to left 3. 3 bands are going to go from center 2 to center 3. 2 bands are going to go from left 3 to left 4, and 2 bands from center 3 to center 4. Then we're going to need to cap off each of these bands with a 3-time cap band. If you're not comfortable looping the bands around your pegs, such as there is loop number 1 for me, I twist and I loop number 2, and I twist and I loop number 3. You need to do the cap bands however you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable doing your cap bands like that, you could always take your hook and the single band and just wrap it around your hook 3 times. Make sure you have what looks like 3 bands on your hook, and then stretch that out over the end. And we're going to loom our piece up in just a moment or two, and we're going to finish it off here and store it on an extra hook or a skewer. In the meantime, I know that we need 12 of these, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish making, or I'm sorry, we're going to need 6 total. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I've loaded up my loom in order to get a set here on the loom. You want to come down, do a single band from the left peg to the center. 3 bands are going to go on the left. 3 bands are going to go in the center. 2 bands will go on the left. 2 bands will go in the center. And then we're going to cap those off again. and you need to cap off however you feel comfortable. 2, 3, but it should be a 3-time cap band, meaning that you want what looks like 3 bands around it. 1, 2, 3, and stretch that over. And then we're just going to move down again, and we're going to do the same thing. A single band, a single band, 3 bands, 3 bands in the center, 2 bands, 2 bands in the center, and we need to cap those off 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and stretch that over. 1, 2, 3, and stretch that over. Now we can begin to loop, and as we loop this set, you're just going to reach into the bottom cap band and loop forward, reaching into that band and moving those 3 forward, and reaching into that band, grabbing the single and moving forward. And we want to move over here to our center section, center peg, grabbing the bottom 2 bands, loop forward, bottom 3 bands and loop forward, and that single band and loop across. I like to move up to the next section and finish looping that section also. So grabbing from the left the 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and single band forward. Move over to the center, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and the single band forward. Moving up again to the next area, 3 bands forward. I'm sorry, that was 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and a single band forward. On the center side, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and a single band forward. Actually, single band over. Now that we're done those 3, which actually makes 6 petals total, I'm just taking my skewer and I'm going to reach in there and I'm going to take these off the loom. Just reaching in and taking each one of those off the loom. Push them back on your skewer a little bit because that's just what we're using to store them with, which is loading up our loom again with a single band down the left, a single band coming over to the center, 3 bands on the left, 3 bands on the center, 2 bands on the left, 2 bands on the center, and a 3-time cap band. 1, 2, 3. Stretched out over that. 1, 2, 3. Stretched out over that. And then I'm back to laying again. A single band at a diagonal. If I can get that on there. We're going to go for 3 bands. 3 bands on the center. Back to 2 on the left. 2 on the center. And a 3-time cap band. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We have to do this one more time. A single band in the center. I'm sorry, a single band on the left. A single band in the center. 3 bands on the left. 3 bands on the center. 2 bands on the left. 2 bands on the center. And now we need to cap those off. 1, 2, 3. 3-time cap band. 1, 2, 3. 3-time cap band. And we're ready to loop each one of these, reaching into the left, grabbing the 2 forward, 3 forward, and a single band forward. Reaching into the center, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and the single band over to finish off that diagonal. Moving up to my next section, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and the single band forward. Moving over to the center area, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and the single over to the diagonal. Finish off that diagonal. And now the top area, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and a single band forward. Moving over to the center, 2 bands forward, 3 bands forward, and the single band forward. And again, we need to grab our skewer or our extra hook, and we're just going to place it in there, grab those and pull them off. Reaching into the next one, just grabbing and pulling that off, and reach into the next one, grabbing and pull that off. So we actually need 6 sets of 2 on our hook, and that'll give us a total of 12 petals. So you want to make sure, just roughly count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got 12 petals sitting here. And we are going to move on to the next section, which will be grabbing our loom, and we're going to be laying out the yellow daisy center. We're going to be laying out the stem, and then we're going to add our petals and attach our bucket and loom the whole guy together. So take a moment and get yourself set back up with your loom in the standard or the offset configuration with your arrows pointing towards your body, and we'll catch back up in just a second. All right, guys, our next step is going to be to do our center. The first thing I want you to do is to lay out a single band on the center peg and allow it to dangle over the back edge. That's going to be our securing band for the whole entire thing at the very end. Our next step is to take 2 bands going from center to left 1, 2 bands coming down on the left, and 2 bands going from left 2 to center 3. We need to do the same thing on the right side. 2 bands going to the right, 2 bands coming down the right side, and 2 bands coming back to the center. And then be sure just to push all of that down. We'll make sure we get all that pushed down. And the next step is going to be to lay our green bands. And as we lay our green bands, we need to add an extra little piece to the back. That makes securing the toothpick a whole lot easier than weaving it in, as I used to do in some of my other techniques. So what I want you to do is to take a single green band, wrap it around your hook 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. If I can get that straight today, I'd be doing really, really good. Let me start again. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So I have 1 band wrapped 3 times around. And I'm going to take 2 bands and I'm going to pull that over onto it. I'm going to stretch that out from my center peg where the diagonal ended down to the next peg. And we're going to need to do this technique 9 times. This is what's forming our stem. So it'll be a single band wrapped around our hook 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 2 bands pulled through, and then stretch that out straight down. We're going to go all the way down to the end of the loom, which I think works out to be 9. I'm hoping it works out to be 9. 1, 2, 3. Pull 2 through and lay on our loom. 1, 2, 3, pull 2 through, and lay on our loom. And I missed the top portion of that, so I'm just going to stretch that across again. Not a big deal, just evening up my bands. I'm going to just start all over because that's going to be easier for me. 1, 2, 3, 2 bands pulled through, and place that on your loom. So essentially you want those little twisted bands to be in the center of each of those links. 1, 2, 3, 2 bands pulled through and stretched onto my loom. 1, 2, 3, 2 bands pulled through and stretched out on my loom. 1, 2, 3, 2 bands pulled through and stretched onto my loom, the center pegs. 1, 2, 3, 2 bands, pull through and stretch out onto that center peg. 1, 2, 3, 2 bands, pull through and stretch out on your center peg. And I lied, it's not 9 times, it's 10. 1, 2, 3, stretch that out, pull through and over your last peg. So essentially from our peg that we ended our diagonal, you want to have those looped bands pulled through and all the way down to your bottom center peg. Okay, our next step is going to be to add our bucket. So we're going to take our medium bucket, and here's your bucket all pretty and cute. And I'm going to flip my bucket inside out, and I'm going to show you guys a boo-boo that I did when I did this bucket also. This is my tie-off band, and over here you'll see another set of bands. Because I did not grab the correct loop when I loomed it shut, I didn't grab the bottom loop when I looped it shut, and I had to quickly tie a little knot and tie 2 pieces together. So I just took an extra piece of band and I tied some together. So if you flip yours over and it looks like that it's starting to unravel some, just quickly grab those bands and tie them together with another piece of your pot band. Means that you did the same thing I did, and that was just misgrabbed the wrong loop. So here we have our center of our bucket, like the center of where that starburst was when we made our bucket. You want to just grab part of those bands that form that center piece. Remember those bands that we wrapped together and then we made it look like a little fisheye and we pulled everything through? You just want to grab a couple of those bands, and we're going to take that and we're going to stretch it out over onto our bottom peg. And that is our cap band for the bottom of our stem. While we're down here working on this, let's go ahead and loop up to where we need to add the leaf. So I am going to reach in, pushing back that, what is now the cap band, the other parts of the bucket, and I'm looming forward once. I'm going to loom forward twice, reaching in, grabbing the bottom 2 bands, loop forward, loop forward, loop forward one more time. So we want to stop looping on peg number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Peg number 8, center 8. You want to stop looping there. Next thing that we're going to do is to add our leaf. And to make the leaf, I did a different technique that I don't think I've ever shown anyone. So let's just get a little cluster of our greens. We're going to take and we're going to wrap 1 green around our hook 3 times. And we're going to pull through 2 bands. 2 bands, pull through, and reclaim those back on your hook. Okay, the next step is with 2 bands, but we're only pulling through 1 set and reclaim that back on your hook. So you only pulled it through 1 link. And then we need to finish off with a single band pulled through those 3, and you can reclaim that back on your hook. And this is just kind of making a puffy little flower type of area here. And then what we need to do is to take and place that on peg number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Peg number 7 from the center is going to get that leaf. And we need to make another leaf for the other side. So we're going to do the same thing, a single band wrapped around our hook 1, 2, 3 times. Take 2 bands and slide that into the center and reclaim. 2 additional bands, but you're only pulling through 1 loop from your hook. And then you're going to reclaim that. So now we have 3 sets of bands on our hook, and we need to pull through a single. So pull through your single and reclaim. And then this can go on our loom on top of the other side. Now we can finish looming up to our area where the stem meets the center. So I'm just looping up to the leaf. I'm reaching in beyond all that leaf stuff, and I'm grabbing the bottom 2 and coming forward, and then the bottom 2 and forward, bottom 2 and forward, bottom 2 and forward. Our next step is to stop right there, and we're going to be adding our center section, which will form sort of a starburst in yellow. Then we're going to add our leaves, or petals, I'm sorry about that. So for our center section, you need to take a single band going from center 1 to center 2, a single band from center 2 to right 1, a single band from center 2 to right 2. A single band is going to go from center down to center 3. But before we do that, we need to add another one of those little 3-time twists. So we're going to take a single band and go 1, 2, 3. Take your single band and pull that 3 over, and then lay it on your loom. This is giving me a little lip in the back that I can add my toothpick to for added support. And we need to finish off by center 2 over to left 2, center 2 to left 1. And essentially we just formed a starburst pattern right there in the center of our creation. So you want to take and you want to wrap a 3-time cap band around that area right there. 1, 2, 3. Actually, I did it 4. Do a 4-time cap band. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to make sure you have 4 bands on your hook, and we're going to slide those on top of this guy right here, the center number 2. And that's going to be a really busy peg for us in just a little while. Our next step is going to be to take our petals, and we need to place our petals around our flower. So take the first set of petals that you come to, and you're going to take all of those, and I'm just going to start off down here on my center peg where the leaf joins. I'm stretching out those 4 bands right there onto that peg. then it doesn't really matter which side we work on next, but it's the next cluster that you come to. There's 4 bands. Stretch those out and onto your next peg. Another cluster of 4 bands, which will be 2 petals, and stretch that out and over. Bring down another set of 4 bands and stretch that out over. There we go. And I got to turn my loom just a little bit to get to these guys. Place those over. And you want to make sure that you get all the petals, all the bands in that petal area. And last but not least, the last one. Okay, so we have kind of this crazy looking little flower, and we're getting ready to wrap her up and get her done here in a minute. We need to start off in the center, reaching through that 4-time cap band and grabbing the band that you see on top. And we need to close off the starburst by pulling that out and coming over to the peg that it came from. If you followed along with my instructions, you would be going to left 1. You're going to reach in. Your next band on top is going to be the one that goes to left 2. You're going to reach in, grab the next band, and this is the one with the little frilly part on it, coming back to the center. And it's a little tight here, so I'm just weaving it out. Had to use my fingers to get that woven out. Next band on top, coming over to right 2. Next band on top, coming over to right 1. And last band in there is going to come up and go to our center. Okay, so you should have a starburst type of pattern going on there in the center. And this next step is going to be complicated for most of us. I want you to reach in beyond your yellows here at the top, beyond your purple, and beyond your green. And you're going to grab those next 2 yellow bands. And I did not grab the correct one, so I'm just going back in again, grabbing those top 2 yellow bands that are on the bottom there, and they're going to be going off to our left. There's going to be a lot of tension on these 2 bands. In order to relieve some of that tension, you may want to just take your hook back and roll things around a little bit. Place your hook in there and just relieve some of that tension. And then we also need to reach in and we need to grab those bottom 2 bands, and these are going off to our left. On our left side, since we're right here, let's reach in through all of that stuff. There's a lot there. And you want those bottom 2 bands. Grab those bottom 2, wiggle them out, and loop forward. Reaching in again. The bottom 2 bands there. Got them. And come over to the diagonal center. Now I need to do the same thing on my right side. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me on camera because I have a hard time doing this on camera showing you guys. So if my hands are in the way, I'm sorry. But reach in there to that right one. Getting the bottom 2. Wiggle those out and loop forward. Reaching in on the next post. Reach through all of that stuff, and you want those bottom 2 bands, which are going to be our diagonal. Wiggle those out and come over to the center. Now we just need to double check that we have got like a little teardrop shape everywhere. And I just want to turn my loom to make sure I don't have any straight pieces under here. And I do not. So we should have gotten every piece of that starburst area and gotten it closed off. I want you to separate out your top 2 purple or whatever color you decided to do your petals. Separate out those a little bit. And we're going to reach in through that top center peg. and we're reaching in through everything that's there, and we're getting this dangle band on the very bottom. Got my dangle band, and I'm just going to pull it straight up through, and you want to weave it out slightly around the peg. Place the end on the hook, and then we're just going to slip knot it right off. And that is what holds every single thing together. So if you're using jelly bands for the center, that jelly band may slip off and your whole creation will just sort of crumble apart. If you need to use a different color band there to secure it, if you are using the jellies, I would recommend that, or C-clip it. And we want to take the back of our hook, and we just want to relieve tension on all of those spots, or use your skewer. You don't want to just rip it off right there because there is a lot of tension. When you get to the leaf area, once again, a lot of tension. I just take the back of my hook and sort of weave it up. Then when you get to the bottom, you want to take your bucket off. And here we have the crazy daisy going on here now. Let's get her fixed up and looking spiffy. You want to make sure your secure band at the top is nice and tight. And we're going to hide that in the back if you want. If you want to use it as a charm, don't hide it. But I am hiding mine in the back. And then here are my 3 little center bands, my twisted bands. There's those that we're going to link in a minute. And the rest of my link bands on the back side. So let's go ahead and take our toothpick and run that through. Grabbing your 3 at the yellow, and we're just sliding that toothpick right on down, or wire, whichever you decided to use. Just slide that right down those 3 bands that we used, and just continue to push all the way down to the bottom of your pot. And I've reached the bottom of my pot, and I'm just going to sort of pierce through the bottom of the pot. And now I need to fold my pot back over. It was turned inside out so we could get to it, and I'm just turning it the correct way now. So here we've got our flower within our flower pot, and you may need to fiddle with it a little bit to get your toothpick straight. Stretch it out a little bit if you want it a little taller. Just stretch it out some. Fluff up your petals, and here we have got our cute little flower pot, 3D flower pot, that we can fiddle with it and get it to stand up nice and straight. Make any colors you wish. Post it on my Facebook page so I can see your creations at Crafty Ladybug, Rainbow Loom Creations, or visit my website, craftyladybugcreations.com. And I hope to see more of your pictures. Also Instagram, at Crafty Ladybug. Thanks so much, guys. Hope you've enjoyed.